The following program has been furnished and paid for by Kevin 7 Financial Services, and KSEV is not responsible for its content or the products or services offered. Welcome to Your Finances with Kevin 7 here on KSEV, a show about finance and retirement planning. And now, here's your host, Kevin Kugley.
Hello, and welcome to Kevin's 7, Your Finances show. 'Twas the night before Thanksgiving, and all throughout America, only two people that I know of are live on the radio. And that would be Gary Knight, producer, and yours truly, Kevin. And if you are there or you're stuck in an airport somewhere, or you're driving in traffic, and the traffic is pretty bad outside before Thanksgiving. I think we're one of the most traveled holidays, pre-holiday days of the year. So feel free to give us a call. 281-558-5738 if you have a financial question, whether it be about the market, the economies, your personal finance. We will take a shot and help you. We are here to help educate the public, and your questions certainly help in that, because if you have a question, more than likely somebody else will have that same question. So we are here live. Again, that phone number, if you would like to call in, is 281-558-5738. The show name is Your Finances, Kevin's 7. We are here, and I am in front of a camera also. YouTube, this will be streamed. YouTube is a big podcaster. Actually, they have Google Podcasts. That's going to be going away at the end of the year, December 31st. And all of that's going to be moving over to YouTube. You can always search for us on your favorite podcast app, or go to YouTube, type in Kevin 7, Kevins, the number 7. If you'd like to catch up on some of the previous episodes that we have, and you can see me here on YouTube. I've got a turkey next to me, Gary.
Wow, is it moving?
No, it's not a real one. It's a it's a fake one. It's a stuffed one, thankfully.
No.
But it makes for good YouTube decor.
Does it look good on TV?
We'll see. Okay. I will send you a copy of the video once it's done.
Let me know, and I'll let you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what in the world happened this week.
In the markets.
Yes. And pretty good so far. No major surprises for the markets. And with what the Fed announced yesterday, we always touch on the Fed. And what are we talking about? The Fed, the Federal Reserve. And they have monetary policy. They can raise interest rates, or they can lower interest rates in regard to the short-term federal funds rate. And if they are raising rates, that, as they have been for the last year or so, that is a hawkish. Whenever you hear people talking about hawkish or I'm a hawk, that means they're trying to fight inflation. So they were more inclined to raise interest rates, so that's a hawk. Dovish means they are more likely to want interest rate lower, and it's easing of monetary policy. So there was no surprises this week in regard to what the Fed spoke about in their minutes, and they have a wait-and-see mode, willing to be patient for more data to help clarify the inflation trajectory. So they are still talking hawkish in tone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to hike farther. So pretty interesting. I expect maybe nothing to happen as far as raising or lowering of interest rates until next year, and then they might ease a little bit or even reduce interest rates. Remember, we talk, and speaking about money and monetary policy, remember we touched briefly on BRICS, BRICS, and how I told you, Gary, that I'm not very concerned about it. I believe that the American dollar is still the strongest monetary unit in the world.
You're a firm believer.
What's that?
You're a firm believer.
I'm a firm believer in the dollar. And you know what? Over the last week, since we last spoke, what has happened? The Argentinian president came on board, the new guy. You heard about this guy?
No, go ahead, finish the story.
Oh, he's brand new. I have, many of our listeners love this guy. One of my friends said, I think I'm going to move to Argentina. So I'll touch it in a moment about why this is important. By the way, a lot of people don't know this about Argentina. Buenos Aires is actually the polo capital of the world. And some people don't know this about me, but I actually played polo there at the Houston Polo Club there at 610 and I-10. And they have a lot of affiliation with Buenos Aires. People go back and forth because that is the polo capital of the world down in Buenos Aires. So what's the big news? Well, this new president, he wants to get rid of their central bank, and he wants to move to the dollar as their currency. That is pretty strong, and that's another objective country saying, yes, we like the dollar. He's a big fan. He's an economist, this guy who's now the president of Argentina. And he, as I have been a follower of Milton Friedman from the University of Chicago and monetary policy, talks about how governments work with their money supply. And we've spoken on this before, how if a government creates more cash or puts more dollars on the market, it's actually going to create more inflation. And that's really the true reason of why we've seen inflation over the last few years in America, because we have just been printing more dollars, right? So the president of Argentina is moving over to the dollar. So then they were invited to BRICS. That's BRICS is the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so it's kind of like a conglomeration that has been formed to, be a competitor to the dollar. And here you have Argentina's moving to the dollar. So we spoke last couple of weeks about Veterans Day and how great America is and how great the dollar is. And our friends in Argentina believe the same thing because they're moving to the dollar. And so the dollar has inched up over this last week or so because of this announcement by the Argentinian president. And we have inched up against the pound and the Eurozone. We've spoken a little bit about the inverse relationship. Inverse means if one goes up, the other goes down. The inverse relationship between the dollar and the price of oil. So the dollar went up against those two currencies that I just mentioned. So what do you think happened to the price of oil over this last week?
It went up?
It went down.
Oh.
So if the dollar goes up in value, then it's an inverse relationship. Oil, the price of oil, since it's based in dollars, they have the inverse relationship, and so price of oil is off a little bit right now. It's at $76 a barrel. So there you have it. What has happened within the last week's been a lot, been going on, and it's important for people to know this relationship with what's going on with the dollar, oil, and not to leave out the 10-year Treasury behind. We speak about the yield of the 10-year Treasury often. It's the stock market's been on an uptick here over the last few weeks, and part of the reason is because the U.S. 10-year Treasury yield has come down. It was up as high as 5. Now it's down to about 4.4. So why do I bring this up? Well, it has an effect on investments and personal finance. So whenever you have the 10-year Treasury up higher, typically people who are going into a new annuity product, right? When the price of the 10-year Treasury is higher, there is more value that an insurance company in the form of an annuity can pass along to the end user or somebody who's investing in an index annuity. And we have an index annuity that we use that has a cap of 12%. Now, you want a cap that's higher. So usually there's about a month time frame where you can go into a new annuity, in this particular case an index annuity, and you can get a higher cap rate. It's the highest that I've seen it in about 15, 20 years, so 12% is very high for an annual point-to-point renewal. And why am I bringing that up? Well, an insurance company set that rate about a month ago when 10-year Treasury was higher. So it would not surprise me if the index annuity rates would come down here over the next month or month and a half, because the 10-year Treasury has dropped pretty dramatically from 5. The 10-year Treasury yield has dropped from 5% to currently 4.4%. So it would make sense if the insurance company that I'm referring to that makes index annuities, they are right now at a high cap of 12%. You want a higher cap in an index annuity. So with that being the case right now, it can go down probably from 12 to 11.5 or 10.5%. And so that's it with an index annuity. You remember what an index annuity is, Gary?
No.
What the benefits are? It's not for everybody.
Well, give us the benefit. Is there benefits for?
Yeah, so the benefit is whenever an index is tied to, that's why they call them indexes. Whenever the index goes up, you participate in the upside. In this case of a 12% cap, you get the 12% upside potentially. So based on one index, the most quoted index is usually the S&P 500. And so in this case, S&P 500, if it goes up 15%, you're capped at 12. So you don't get the 15, you get the 12, which is pretty good. And it locks it in every year. Whatever that gain is, that becomes your new floor. So if the S&P 500 were to ever go down, you don't lose money in an indexed annuity. That is the value. Unless you were to take the money out prematurely. But as far as principal protection, you have it inside of an indexed annuity. And vocabulary is very important, because if it doesn't have the word index in front of the annuity, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will give you protection. A variable annuity varies. That goes up and down. So your principal can vary. But an index annuity, it's usually based on an index, and you cannot lose money in your principal. So the shorter the term, the better it is, no matter what investment choice you can go into if you have certain guarantees. So I've seen index annuities anywhere from 5 years to 14 years. So based on that, what I just quoted is saying that you are better off having a shorter surrender. You would, in my opinion, for most people, rather have a 5-year surrender than a 14-year surrender. Now, 7-year is typically the average. the index annuity company might give you a little bit higher of a cap rate if you stretch it out to 7 years instead of 5 years. So the term and the penalties, if you were to withdraw early, all need to be taken into account for inside of an index annuity. Now, again, why do I bring up an index annuity right now? It's because this is the highest that I've seen index annuity cap rates right now. 12% for an annual point-to-point index annuity is quite high. And that was set a few weeks ago with the one insurance company that I'm thinking of. And, I'm licensed. I could do pretty much business with virtually any insurance company out there. So I've seen one this one that we use, it's 12% and it's the highest. And it wouldn't surprise me if that were to come down, since that 10-year treasury has dropped. So if you are thinking about going into an indexed annuity, now is the time to take a look at it. Usually, whenever the 10-year treasury is at its highest, you're going to get more value for an indexed annuity, or a fixed annuity for that matter. And even variable annuities will give you income riders. Typically, they'll be more advantageous in a higher interest rate environment. So something to think about. And you call us directly. You can speak to my assistant, Susan. Call 877-KEVINS-7 if you'd like to have a private conversation via Zoom. That's 877-KEVINS, the number 7. We'll take a quick break and take your questions. Having a hard time knowing what kind of income you may expect in retirement? Kevin 7 is a financial planning firm. We take you from financial confusion to financial confidence. A financial plan takes into account what you're making, spending, and saving, and forecasts that into the future. Call us at 877-KEVIN-7. That's 877-538-4677. We can schedule an appointment for you via Zoom, phone, or even in person. Or visit us on our website at kevins7.com, KEVINS, the number 7.com.
Do you have cracks in your sheetrock, doors sticking? You may have foundation failure. If so, we can fix it. 832-515-3581. This is Mike Calvert with Noble Foundation Repair. We've been helping homeowners throughout the Gulf Coast region for over 30 years. At Noble Foundation Repair, we use the original Permapile system that comes with a lifetime transferable warranty. Call me at 832-515-3581 for your free estimate. Or visit my website, noblefoundationrepair.com.
Phone lines are open now. Call 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV.
Here we are, Wednesday, November the 22nd, the day before Thanksgiving. And we are going to chat more about your finances. We spoke about an indexed annuity and how they've had the highest cap rate that I've seen in 20 plus years, and how that's if the 10-year treasury, now nobody can look and see into the future, but the 10-year treasury has dropped from 5, 10-year treasury yield has dropped from 5 to 4.5. Typically, when that happens, insurance companies have to pull back on their cap rates. So, that is why I'm speaking about index annuities. And if you have any questions on how that works, just give us a call. Let us know your individual question. But right now, we are going to move into the broader concepts of what the foundation of Kevin's 7 financial firm is, and that is financial planning. So what a financial plan does is it takes into account what you're making, what you're saving, what you're spending, what your balances are, and it forecasts that into the future to see what kind of retirement income that you should expect to receive. And we've mentioned this on the show many times, Gary, that unfortunately most employers don't offer pension plans like they did back the 70s and the 80s and even up to the 90s. You're pretty fortunate out there if you have your employer giving you a pension plan, which is also, we call that a defined benefit. So the defined benefit plan is typically employers don't like that liability. So they being the employer have shifted away from that. They don't want the liability of having to pay people out in the future, whether it be a lump sum distribution from a pension plan or a guaranteed payment from a pension plan. They don't want to do that. So employers switched over to the defined contribution plan. And that's where, that's why 401ks and 403bs have become the largest providers for retirement, right? So that's how it has developed over the past several years since that pension has gone away. So a lot of times when we do this financial plan, right, we have fantastic software that can update your financial plan real time. And even though, I don't meet with my clients on a daily basis, obviously, they can look at their total balances on their profile page of their financial plan. And it updates all of their holdings, no matter what financial institution, on the financial planning profile webpage. Why is this important? Well, there's a popular software out there that is called Mint. And Mint is going away. Have you heard of this Mint software that a lot of people use, Gary?
No. Is it good? Have you tried it?
Yes, I've tried it. And it's part of Intuit, which they do TurboTax and QuickBooks. And Mint is part of that, but for some reason or another, Intuit's not going to be doing Mint anymore. So the value of Mint for many people was that they could see all of their financial balances, no matter which institution, right? It was pretty nifty. They had a Fidelity 401k here and a Roth IRA there and a brokerage account over here. All of those could be seen in one place inside of the Mint software. So we allow people, and any of our listeners can do this right now. They can go to kevins7.com. That is KEVINS, the number 7.com. You just put that in, and then you scroll down the page. And it says, we take you from financial confusion to financial confidence on the right side. 3-step start. Totally free for anyone to do this. They may plug it in. It's bank encrypted software, so it's very good. And you don't have to worry about it. You can log into this software, and then what happened? We have people on staff at 877-KEVIN7 that could help you with this. But as long as you know your user ID and the passcode, you can link all of your financial accounts so that you can see them in one place. Because unfortunately, Mint is not going to be doing this anymore. So the beauty of this, though, is that once all of your financial information is put into the financial planning software, not only can you see your profile of all of your financial institutions, but all of that information feeds into all of the different financial planning modules, whether it be retirement planning, investments, insurance, life insurance, education for your kids, tax planning, estate planning, liability management, all of that information. By the way, you can put your company's mortgage in there, your mortgage company in there too, and it updates into your financial plan real time. And what you want to have is a high probability of success based on what you want to do in retirement. So this software is the best software that we have on the market. In my opinion, I'm somewhat of a techie, and I like when the technology is simple. And this is the simplest software for people to log in and get started with their finances. Feeds into a financial plan.
We have a number to call, 281-558-5738, and Joseph is on the phone.
All right. We have Joe on the phone. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hi, Kevin. How are you this evening?
Well, I'm terrific. I'm surprised we got a call here right before Thanksgiving, but I there's a rumor going on out there, Joe, that you have like a special announcement. Something's going on.
Oh, yeah, my phone's been blowing up all day. We went ahead and filed to run for the Texas State Senate District 15. That's the big announcement, you know. So
wow.
Joseph L. Trahan will be on the ballot and running as a Republican, of course. I think I'm uncontested right now. We've raised over $3 million in pledges, and I think we'll probably hit our goal of $7 million for this district. But that district has been under the control of a Democrat as a state senator for 40 years. The same guy, John Whitmire, he's about to win the mayoral election in Houston, Texas, and he will then resign or abdicate his throne.
A lot of people will recognize Joe Trahan's voice. He used to be on KSEV 700 AM at 6 p.m. He has run BizPac, which is pro small business. And we have a lot of small business clients and listeners. And, you know, I just believe that, Joe, you running that PAC, you're going to continue when you get elected with being pro small business. And you're going to take it into the government. And tell us again, now, when is this election and who can vote for you?
Okay. You have to live in there are 31 state of Texas Senate districts. Senate District 15 is right here in Houston. It kind of goes from the Bel Air, Westview, Montrose River Oaks area, up around the Memorial Park, Rice Military, up to the east side of the Heights, and then it goes up 290, and then it curves around Highway 6 all the way to the far east side of Houston, below Lake Houston, and then shoots down to Galena Park. It's the craziest shape. I always tell people that district is shaped like a colon because that's what comes out of most legislative bodies is the same thing. You know,
yeah, and you're going to clean it out, huh?
We're going to clean this thing out. Yeah. Yeah, we're all about smaller government transparency. I want election integrity. That's the number one thing I'm running on is election integrity. The state of Florida has the tightest election integrity laws in the United States of all 50 states. In Florida, when you vote, in the voting system, the Secretary of State immediately takes a copy of your ballot in trust with your county that administers the election. So your county's got a copy, the Secretary of State's got a copy. You then can go home and you have a PIN number that you set up, that's your own individual PIN number, and you can see your ballot in the Secretary of State database. Then when the county certifies an election, it better match what's in the Secretary of State database. We don't have that in Texas, and we're going to have that.
I don't know that they have that anywhere, but it sounds like a brilliant concept. You can see that
Florida did that. Florida did that, and when they did that, Florida was a blue state, it was a liberal state, and when they did that, it turned all but 2 counties in Florida red. Even Dade County turned red when they established integrity in Florida in their election law. So that's the number one priority for me is Florida. We want Texas to be the pillar. We want it to be the model. We want it to be the example that all other states need to follow for election integrity. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running is we have to be able to believe in our elections. People have to know that when they vote, their voice is heard. And so that's the elections belong to the people. And an example of how screwed up it is right now, that goofy Lena Hidalgo and her election administrators, Isabella Longoria was one of them. What a confused child that was. And then this Clifford Tatum fella, he just flat out refused to turn over the records, even under court order. And so you and I as citizens, you and I as voters, elections belong to the voters. You and I as voters probably will never see the light of day on those elections, and that is where the election fraud lawsuits came from. Now, that de-energizes voters, whenever you can't count on your vote.
Where can people go to help you? Now, Joe, obviously don't listen to political advice from me because I ran for election for Beverly Hills City Council and I did not win, but I got some experience of how not to do things. And how can people reach out to help you? And again, you got a lot of time before this happens, right?
The way it works is there's a primary March 5th. Okay, so I'm running as the Republican candidate for State Senate District 15. The primary is March 5th, and of course we'll have early voting for that too. JosephLTrahan.com. That's a website I don't know if they've got it up yet. They say it'll be up today. I approved everything that they were doing, so I think that they'll have the thing online here shortly. JosephLTrahan.com. And you can learn everything you want to learn about us there. But if you go to BizPac, BizPac, bizpac.us, you can learn about our organization there. We believe in a lot of the exact same things that are the fundamental tenets of the platform of my campaign. So you can learn about it at bizpac.us or go to Joseph L. Trahan, Trahan.
Joe, you've got some pretty big endorsements too, don't you?
I sure do, and I promised to let them announce that, but from the top on down all the way through the county GOP, I mean, from the without naming names, I don't want to give it away, but some of them are coming down for our fundraisers in January and February leading up to the election, coming into Houston. State officials, the ones you know. I'll put it this way: if you go to bizpac.us, you'll see all their pictures right there, and these are the folks that have been big friends with BizPac, with all of our members, all of our business owner members in that organization to enable business-friendly legislation. They've been great to work with, but from the top of our Republican Party on down, and even inside of our Republican Party itself and our county GOP and our precinct executives, I think that we've garnered every single endorsement. But I'm going to let each of them announce that on their own, that endorsement. That's kind of the polite way to do that. That's the right protocol for that.
We're excited to hear about that. Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I'm just glad you asked me on the show. Grateful for you as a friend. And
well, I know you're going to do well. I think you're going to win the election. And I think that everybody remember State Senate Joe Trahan. And we want to – we were talking – I had these conversations before with Joe about one of the biggest expenses for any business or any of our listeners there, particularly in the Houston area, is land taxes and HISD. And, wow, it's just incredible. The big joke is that you don't really own the land, that you're just renting it from the state of Texas, right?
That's right.
And you followed that. Joe's followed this inside of the state of Texas more closely than I have, and it's it's something that I know that Joe, if you want to talk a little bit about what has happened, they had the exemption, but it wasn't really as good as we thought that it would be. And how would you go in and you would help fight against these ridiculously high land taxes that never seem to come down?
Our property tax.
I always remember just driving up 290 to protest my taxes every year up there. At HCAD.
Right. We were all in the waiting room with a number ticket in our hand to go ask them, how in the world did you come up with this rate for my taxes, But, property tax is immoral. The fundamental tenet of this nation, the reason this country was founded, was for the first time in the history of the world, our founding fathers made it okay for you and I, average citizen, to own land, to own it. It didn't exist. The Magna Carta document, if you want to get that far back, the Magna Carta, it alluded to it, but it was always at the will of whatever ruling class that there was, however the system was set up in whatever country. So when America was founded, it was founded on the principle of private property ownership, and the quiet enjoyment of your property is a fundamental tenet of private property ownership. Well, man. And then all of a sudden they found out that it was easier to collect taxes based on your land.
Yeah.
Because your homestead, where you lived, they knew that you would go ahead and pay that tax, but you may cheat on your commerce income, your retail taxes, franchise taxes, things like that. And so they found that it was an easy grab bag. And if you look at the way governments run, they run two different ways. Either you have a government that's proactive and it's small. Proactive governments are really small. They're efficient. And they only exist for a little bit of time until they get corrupted. But proactive governments are small. Reactive governments, right, what they do, every solution is they go create another program to buy these votes, to quit these people from crying, to give them a pacifier. And every time that any government at all writes any law, it is a tax. Because there is no law without enforcement. There is no law without oversight. There is no law without regulation. There is no law without judicial. There is no law without criminal penalty and incarceration, all these things that cost money. So you're going to have tax. You're going to have tax every time they write a law. We're living under 1.5 million laws right now.
It's crazy. And, I've lived in both California, Texas, Tennessee, and I've seen the difference in the taxation. In Tennessee, the land tax isn't nearly as bad as it is inside of the state of Texas. And actually, believe it or not, in California, they have something called Prop 13, where you can go in, these people have bought a home back in the 60s and 70s. They're still locked into the appraisal district having that home valued at $80,000 if they bought it back in the 70s and now it's worth $3 million. They're only getting taxed on that low amount from what they originally bought it at. And in that way, I hate to say it, but the lower land tax can be better. Now, do not get me wrong. I do not like state income taxes. I know all the states that have no state income tax off the top of my head. But here's the thing, that why Texas having a ridiculously high land tax, or what we call renting from the state of Texas tax, is if you lose your job and you have to pay that land tax, it's due no matter what.
The property tax, what they'll do is they'll get a lien against your property, and they can drive you into forfeiture in the courts and force the sale of your property. Now, on the homestead, you're protected at your homestead from being evicted, but that lien just sits there, ruins your credit. This is a silly game that's got to stop, and the people are waking up to it because it's so egregious.
Yep.
I had a home in Memorial over on the bayou. My property tax was a teacher's salary. That just seems ridiculous. So when you've got these ridiculously high taxes like that, then at some point it implodes. At some point it craters, and it's a never-ending spiral of increases is what happens. Once they start taxing on property, then what happens is the economy, it starts to really suffer. Now, here we are. Where are we at right now? Look at the economy right now. That's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. So what we need to do is have reasonableness and get away from the idea of taxing property, a never-ending grab bag, shrink government, and get tax where it belongs. Tax belongs in the stream of commerce. We need smaller government and have our taxes over in the stream of commerce. That's the proper place for a tax. That's the sign of a healthy economy. That's the sign of a reasonable fiscal government. Now, I want to give credit to Senator Paul Betancourt because he's pretty masterful. He used all of his skills in the Senate with the other 31 senators, and he was able to get them to agree to this $100,000 homestead discount off of your tax base. There are lots of other factors, and everybody knows that, about how they manage property taxes. But the whole notion of property tax to begin with, it is immoral. It goes against the Constitution, the fundamental tenet of this country, and it's got to stop. Let's shrink government, and let's put our taxes where they belong, over in commerce. Can you imagine if we weren't covered up in the taxation that we're covered up in, and we're paying an effective tax rate of 60% or better, because there's multiple taxes by the time you even pay tax on something. But if we get our taxing correctly and shrink our government, get rid of the fat, and eliminate corporate welfare, imagine how this economy could thrive. Texas is going to do well anyway, but can you imagine
if you get that
the wealth
Joe,
that could be created in Texas if we
remember
got it
the
running
name Joe
right?
Trahan. Joe Trahan, he's running for state senate for the state of Texas. And state of Texas has done a fantastic job attracting businesses from all over, particularly out of California. Chevron, Occidental, Tesla,
Right.
all of these companies have moved to California, from California to Texas because of the tax situation. Money always flows to where tax dollars aren't. So state of Texas should always keep having a no state income tax, but also got to get that, particularly within the city. And Joe, you got the perfect demographic where this truly hits home. They're looking at that HISD tax, which just is ridiculous on their
what's crazy
statement.
about
You
that
got the
is
Harris County Appraisal District that randomly goes
Right.
in, and they will, I think the computer says your value is up 30% this year. I'm like, one time I told those guys over there, I said, well, you can give me cash for the property right now, and I will sell it to you if you think it's valued at that
Right.
much.
Yeah, they don't ever do that though. They never take you up on that offer.
No, they don't.
No, because they know that they can bankrupt and drive you into the forfeiture court. They know they can get it in forfeiture for a lot less. But what's so crazy about the property tax being tied to school, and then you have school systems that are failing like that because of the corruption in the school board.
We need
at
school
HISD.
choice too. I guess
we do. We most definitely
you're going to
do.
work on the school choice and the getting the land taxes down still, right?
Well, we want real school choice with parents' rights in there. If you're paying taxes, I say this all the time when they get these woke activist school boards. These guys are hired guns on these school boards. These are career politicians. They're in there making the parents miserable and distracting them with child grooming, LGBTQX kind of propaganda and gender confusion of the children. And they're driving the parents crazy with that, so they won't realize that they're really a taxing authority, and they keep raising their property tax and handing that money out as corporate welfare incentives to the companies that hired them to be there in the first place. That's how those guys get $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to go run for a school board trustee position.
Wow. Yeah, I've always said it, Joe. I said money makes the world go round and politics distributes it. So, unfortunately, a lot of politicians out there, they're doing whatever the money trail leads to, and in many cases, it's not a good thing for the taxpayer. And Joe was telling me at one point that the amount of money the lobbyists just for the state of Texas make, and it's pretty astounding. I didn't know that
the top 8 lobbyists are making more than $8 million a year.
Yeah, it's
there's
that's
9
just incredible.
9 lobbyists for every elected and appointed official in the state of Texas, from dog catcher to the governor's office. Now think about that. 9 lobbyists, and they make a killing. They make show me a broke lobbyist. There's not any.
Yeah.
And so that they're working against you and I, average citizen, voter, taxpayer. They're working against us every day. The other thing that corporate America has done with all these lobbyists is they have taken our representatives, gotten them to vote in taxpayer-funded lobbying. So imagine this. You're paying taxes, and your elected official voted in taxpayer-funded lobbying. So your taxes paid for them to raise your taxes. Your taxes are paying for those lobbyists. Think about that. How morally bankrupt is that? I want to get rid of that. Every lobbyist, I want to put a shirt with a target on it. I think when they walk in the Capitol, they should not be allowed. They have to wear a shirt placard with all their corporate sponsors. For
like
lobbying.
NASCAR drivers.
When they walk around the Capitol, trying to work over our politicians, our elected officials, I think they ought to walk around just like a race car with everything on them.
Yeah,
I'm really sick of the lobbyists. Yeah.
Well, maybe there could be some kind of legislation when you get in there, and the full election will be in December, right? So, of next year, and you can get in there, and you
November. The general will be in November. The primaries here in March.
Gotcha. And then you can create legislation that will show who received what lobbyist dollars and where they came from. And
I would love to make that mandatory, transparent. And I think that's very important. Now, over at BizPac, we have a lot of tools on our website available to the public as a public service. We have a lot of tools there that you can look. You can go to followthemoney.org and other sites that we have links in there, and we tell you how to do it the best way. And you can search all the public record databases. It'll spider out to multiple databases, and that's how we found where a lot of politicians were taking money that were supposed to be conservative. That's how we found out where a lot of David Phelan's money went to state reps this last session, the session before, and TLR as an example. These were corrupting influences that caused a sham impeachment with no evidence, wasting your and my taxpayer dollars and all of our elected officials' time. It stalled the pro-business and pro-family and pro-parents' rights agenda. And the governor still can't get this legislation that he's proposing, or that he's saying that he'll approve. He still can't get Dade Phelan in the House to do their job. Dade is working against him 100%. And that's all about lobbyists. That's really, really all about lobbyists.
Here you have it, folks. Joe Trahan is going to be running for state senate. Vote for him in the primary, which is coming up
we
March.
Appreciate that. March 5th.
March 5th.
Joseph L. Trahan on the ballot.
Joseph L. Trahan on the ballot. So he has the values that you have as listeners. And I know Joe will fight for lower taxation. And he means it.
I'm not kidding. I appreciate it very much, Kevin. Thank your listeners for putting up with all of that, and I look forward to seeing you at the polls and seeing you around the district while I'm running.
All right, we'll see you around. There are 3 things you need to know when choosing a financial advisor. Number 1, experience. Number 2, credentials. And number 3, judgment ability. I have over 27 years experience in the industry. I am a Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor, CRPC, and an MBA. Although past performance doesn't guarantee future results, we can show you that we've delivered results that double the S&P 500. Don't hesitate. Call us at 877-KEVIN7 or visit us on our website, KEVINS7.com.
At Trulux, stone crab season is finally upon us. From the turquoise waters of the Florida Keys, we catch them, pack them on ice, and jet fresh deliver them. From our traps to your table in less than 24 hours. Also returning is Trulux famed Power Lunch. Need a spot for a quick lunch meeting? Come and join us at Trulux for an amazing power lunch. Check us out at Trulux.com or give us a call at 713-783-7270. We will be honored to have you in. Your table is waiting.
Phone lines are open now. Call 281-558-5738. That's 281-558-KSEV.
And we are back. I think it's very important that people get involved. This is mainly a financial planning show. But as you see things that happen out in your community, it's important, and I respect anybody who runs for office. I think it's important that people go out and they try to make a difference. And you want to have people out there to help minimize taxation. And the land taxes, particularly in Texas, are pretty out of control still, even with the latest tax law. It still needs to be worked on. So it's all part of a financial plan to have lower taxation. So we taxation. You can avoid taxes legally. You cannot evade taxes, obviously, but avoiding taxes by how you place your money in certain investment choices and how you look at liability management. So liability management, you got that tax liability every year. So you always want to have people out there who are your representative or your senator that have that kind of mentality, typically for lower taxation, right? Makes sense to you, Gary?
Everything you do makes sense, Kevin 7.
So there you have it. Part of a financial plan is tax liability or any kind of liability management. And, it's important when looking at what your taxes are going to be in the future. It's all goes into the financial plan. Everybody, do a financial plan. Call us at 877-KEVIN7. We will see you next Wednesday.
Electric Avenue. Electric Avenue.
Thanks for listening to Your Finance with Kevin 7. If you have a question for Kevin during the week, you can call him at 877-KEVINS7. Or his website is KEVINS7.com. And join us again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. for Your Finances with Kevin 7.
Kevin Kugley is a registered representative with securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.